Good morning, advocates and law. Good morning, Commissioner Spies.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. And good morning to you, Commissioner Spies. When we parted yesterday afternoon, we had just concluded the subchapter in your statement on death threats that you had received. We are now moving on to a new topic, and that starts at page 22 of your statement. And it's under the heading Criminal Record Vetting Process. Have you located the place?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay. If you could pull the microphones closer to you. Thank you. You deal with this from your paragraph 47 up to 52. So let's have a conversation about those paragraphs before we deal with your subtopic regarding systemic concerns.
Work forum, which was established with the Constitution, where the National Police Commissioner and the municipal police chiefs meet on a quarterly basis, and we then set standards and uniform standards between us, and also align in terms of the single policing concept, that we align our training methods and procedures and everything. So in terms of that, at our quarterly meeting in the November 2021, there was a discussion at this, what we call the Chiefs Forum, that how do we enable it that the municipal police members also get vetted and criminal records checked, because we as a municipal police services, we don't have access to the South African Police Service computer systems and criminal record centrums. We are actually like civilians on the side for their systems purposes. And it was then agreed that we will initiate a process where we will at least take all the members' fingerprints, submit it in a manual process to the South African Police Service, and that they will then verify the criminal records at a once-off basis to us. And then we will...
Sorry, Commissioner. You said this was at Chiefs Forum? Chiefs what?
We call it the Chiefs Forum. The South African Police Service have established a Metro Police nodal point within the South African Police, and the 6 current municipal police services have then established a nodal point as well, where we interact and deal with one another. And then there's a constitution for this forum, and this forum consists then of 2 separate subcommittees. The one subcommittee deals with training-related matters, training academies and training curriculum. And the second committee is the Research, Technology and Uniform Standards Subcommittee, of which I am the chairperson. And then the chiefs themselves have a forum as municipal police. And then on the Friday, we have a combined South African Police Service and Municipal Police Service meeting, where we then try to thrash out any challenges or issues that we have between the forces, and so that we can standardize everything between us. This has been in place since Commissioner Selebe, or General Commissioner Selebe's time when he was the National Police Commissioner. It's continued on since to date.
Thank you. You may go back to where you were. Thanks.
Thank you. So when we returned from the November 2021 meeting at Ekurhuleni, Chief Mapie initiated an immediate interdepartment process where he issued what we call a directive, a standard operating procedure, which is in terms of our policies, he issues a directive to all the staff and the deputy chiefs, which we must then immediately comply with. This directive was that everyone's fingerprints must be taken. It must be submitted to his staff officer, Colonel Ivan du Plessis, who will then make arrangements, and Commissioner Mapie is then also, because the Provincial Police Commissioner was known about this, it was arranged with the Provincial Police Commissioner that the whole of Ekurhuleni's fingerprints will be taken, Ekurhuleni Metro Police, and then this will be analyzed by South African Police Service and feedback will be provided to us. It's
Was this to be done for the first time, or is it something that had been done within the EMPD before?
In EMPD, it was done, but very haphazardly and randomly. It wasn't done on a regular basis at all. It was initially when we became members, when we were established, which is like 22 years ago, it was done initially. But thereafter, it was only done when you recruit people. The recruits' fingerprints will be taken. But officers in the force would stay without having their fingerprints being taken. It's only when you do promotions. During a promotion process, the shortlisted candidates, their fingerprints will then be taken, and so that you can look at the promotions. But it wasn't a regular exercise done.
I am aware that in your statement you mentioned that Brigadier Mkhwanazi refused to be subjected to this. But before that, had he ever been subjected to this process?
Not at all. It would have been only during his original appointment as a recruit. That was the only time that it would have been done.
Thank you. Thank you. Please continue.
So
Commissioner, before you move on, may I invite you to your annexure RS 18, and we have this conversation in the context of, or with reference to the actual directive issued by the Chief of Police, Chief Mapie, in 2021. And in particular, I would like you to concentrate what my reading of the directive. The opening paragraphs and the first 3 paragraphs in large part deal with the legislative framework, what the law provides, insofar as vetting is concerned. I would like you to draw your attention to the second last paragraph, the penultimate paragraph on that page, at page 47, the last paragraph, and then you can move over then to the process to be followed as prescribed by that directive. So if you could deal with what the directive required of all members, and then we will take it from there as regards the issue of compliance or non-compliance. Thank you.
Must I start at the second last paragraph of the directive?
Yes, where it references the National Strategic Intelligence Act.
Correct. So the directive explains the legislative framework where there's to prevent any labor issues if officers wants to disagree with it. So it starts off in the second last paragraph to say the National Strategic Intelligence Act, Act number 39 of 1994, in section 2, capital A, 1, small a and small b, is very specific that employees of an organ of state may be vetted. The city of Ekurhuleni is considered an organ of state as envisaged in this act, and therefore all employees of EMPD are included to be vetted. The South African Police Services Crime Intelligence Section has been instructed or appointed to perform the vetting of all municipal police services by the National Police Commissioner, and the standard forms as printed and issued by the government printer shall be used, e.g. SAP 91 inquiry. And then on page 48, the process to be followed. The annual vetting process for EMPD shall start on 1 January 2022 and be concluded by 28 February 2022. Disciplinary action will be instituted against any non-compliance. During this process, each divisional head shall be responsible to ensure that all employees in their respective divisions' fingerprints be taken on the prescribed form, SAP 91, and submitted to the office of the Chief, Colonel Ivan du Plessis, the staff officer in the Chief's office. The forms will then be submitted to the Gauteng Provincial Police Commissioner's office for analysis and feedback to the Chief's office. And then it's signed by Commissioner Mapie as the Chief of Police.
Thank you. Reading all the process to be followed, item 1 stipulates that the annual vetting process, or states that the annual vetting process shall start on the 1st of January 2022. My question is, was this process intended to be repeated on an annual basis? Was that the intention? Was that your understanding of?
Correct, Commissioner. Because in Ekurhuleni it wasn't done. It was only done upon promotions, and it was only done when you are initially recruited. all the other Metro Police departments do it on an annual basis. And we were the only ones who actually, when it came to light and during these discussions at the Portfolio Police Committee, we noticed that we don't do everyone every year. We only do the promotion part of it, and we only do upon recruitment. And therefore, the decision was made that this annual vetting shall be instituted and it shall start as an annual for everyone.
And I see that at item 2, it states that during this process, each divisional head shall be responsible to ensure that all employees in their respective divisions' fingerprints be taken. This is 2021, December 2021. Please remind us how many divisional heads were there within EMPD and specifically who they were.
The divisions were Division Operations and Specialized Services, which have Commissioner Goodman Mazzolo as the head of that division. It was Division Auxiliary and Support Services, of which I was the head as a Deputy Commissioner Spies. It was the Division Security, of which Commissioner Ndumiso Kwabe was heading the security and loss control. There was a Division Licensing, which was then headed by Mr. Hamilton Letwaba. Sorry, I have to, in my mind, go back, make sure that I mentioned. And there was a Division Compliance. However, Division Compliance was vacant and there was no appointment in that position at that stage. The functions of that division was divided between the other deputy chiefs at that stage.
Okay, you may proceed with your testimony then. What did you do? What happened after this directive was issued by Chief Mapie?
So from my section, I had a subsection within me called the Warrant of Arrest section. That Warrant of Arrest section was headed by a Colonel Foster, and I tasked him and his whole team to immediately start the process on 1 January, taking my division's fingerprints. That was concluded in January already, the whole division of Auxiliary and Support Services. I then made him available to the other divisions to say, please assist the other divisions because they take too long to do this process. And by the end of February, which the chief's deadline was, a large portion of it was concluded except the Southern region and the Specialized Services. Specialized Services refused to have their fingerprints taken at all. This section is the section that resorts under then Brigadier Mkhwanazi. They refused to have their fingerprints taken. The Southern region, the reason they haven't concluded yet is they are the largest region. They have the most officers and they were running late because of the volumes and the officers working different shifts and taking their fingerprints. So there was a verbal extension that we can carry on during the year with it. And at the end of February and March, Colonel du Plessis then took all the fingerprints that was already submitted, handed it over to the Provincial Police Commissioner's office, and they started to analyze it. In the South African police side, it took a long time. It was like 4 to 5 months to took it, but it was distributed to different criminal record centres like Soweto, Johannesburg, Tshwane, and East Rand because of the huge volume that came in. And then it started to trickle back, and eventually, once it started coming back, one of my sections, Colonel van Rooyen, which is the human resource liaison person, her section was then tasked to scan and capture the returns, which is the SAP 69 forms, which is the criminal records. It will state on the front page either illicit activity recorded or no illicit activity recorded. If it says no illicit activity recorded, then there's no record of SAPS looking for you or having any record of you. And if there's illicit activity recorded, there will be a SAP 69, which is the actual record, will then be attached to the back of that. So Colonel van Rooyen and her section started to capture all of these returns as it is. Eventually, there was more than 3,700 in total. I don't have the exact figure, but I've got a spreadsheet with the actual names on it that was submitted to HR. And in this process, when we got to a stage where it's a year later now, we're supposed to start the next session of vetting again, but we haven't even concluded the first session again. And I was then tasked by Chief Mapie to give feedback on this specific status. Where in the project are we? Because we are capturing, my section is capturing it. I then prepared a feedback where I presented and I started. We were at a meeting which we call PEXCO Inside. It's Police Executive Committee. It's the Chief of Police with his deputy chiefs and the head of internal affairs that is together. And at this meeting where we were present, the chief was chairing and I was presenting the feedback of this or where we are. The moment I started to give feedback, Brigadier Mkhwanazi was sitting right opposite me. And he started to scream with even spit and froth that comes out of his mouth at me, where he was screaming extremely disrespectful towards me, screaming that he doesn't have a criminal record, and I'm saying he's got a criminal record. And I said to him, but I'm not saying you've got a criminal record. I'm giving feedback on the status of the fingerprints. What I do say is that your section didn't provide the fingerprints and they refused to provide the fingerprints. I'm not saying you have a criminal record. And he just kept on screaming at me in front of all of us in the meeting. He physically took his phone out and he started phoning. And he speaks, you can clearly hear, he speaks to the city manager, Imogen Mkhwanazi. And he puts the phone down and he says, the city manager says this process will stop immediately. And he turned around and he walked out in an extremely disrespectful manner. Closed the door. We were all still shocked that a senior officer can actually even act in this manner. And the chief of police, Commissioner Mappier, then calmed us all down and says, stop, don't discuss further anything here. He will go and speak to the city manager afterwards and he will calm everything down. We must just carry on doing our work. And from that meeting then, the very next day, I received an email from Kasheka, who is the HOD of HR, wherein she stated that the process and we must submit everything to them. At that stage, I have already prepared what we call a council item. It is a draft item that we can report to council. Everything is already in the item, the wording, the background, the discussion, up to resolutions even, but it's still in the draft form. It states at the top draft as well. Attach this list of officers with a graph of what the crimes are, what the officers are accused of, just redacting their names, and the spreadsheet itself has been encrypted with a password that no one can really open it if they do see it. And we submitted that as a proposal to say, we from a Metro Police side thinks that HR must deal with these officers in the following manner. And the proposal that we in the draft made is that the officers must be offered the chance to provide proof that they have been expunged, because there is in law an expungement process, and it's possible that they've been expunged and the certificates has not been submitted, that we make sure that it's a proper process so that every officer be given an opportunity. So we propose, because we know how long the process takes in the Justice Department, is to give them a period of 6 months, provide proof of expungement, and if you do not have proof of expungement, that we then start the initial proceedings at the end to either dismiss or to take disciplinary actions against the officers who got criminal records. So then that day a meeting was then set up with HR. However, it was postponed at the last minute to the next day, and we then met at Kasheka's boardroom in Germiston.
Well, before you continue, Commissioner, I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to take you back to Brigadier Mkhwanazi. And you said his entire section had refused basically to be subjected to this fingerprint process. Do you know how many police officers were in this section?
Commissioner, it's close to 200.
Did you get any information as to how it came about that all of them did not subject themselves to the process?
When Colonel Foster and the group of officers that I've assigned, when they came back to me every day to give feedback to say they've done so many fingerprints per day or and they all came back to me and says they visited specialized services officers and the officers were not there, and when they spoke to the supervisors said to them they're not going to give their fingerprints because it's an illegal process. So I received everyday feedback just to say that the specialized services doesn't want to give their fingerprints in that. And because there was also from some of the union members that came to see me that wanted to have clarity, because they say their members have approached them to say we're taking their fingerprints, and nowhere in the act does it say we can take their fingerprints. And then we had sessions with organized labor as well to say, but here it is. You know, it's in numerous different legislation that police officers' fingerprints can be taken. It even states in the regulation 11 of the Municipal Police Services, it states if you refuse to have your fingerprints taken, you commit an offense. So we explained to the union members there was a proper process to get them as well of faith that this is a legal process. There's nothing illegal or untoward about it.
And the supervisors that you say you got, or Foster, was it? Was it Foster that was doing the...
Colonel Foster is the
Colonel
one
Foster,
that
yes,
he
yes,
was in charge of the unit and went to assist to take
Yes.
the fingerprints.
The supervisors that you say he got feedback from, would those have been supervisors who fell under the supervision of Brigadier Mkhwanazi?
Correct. The specialized services considered there's one of the supervisors there was Dion Singh. He was from the K9 Equestrian Unit and the Drug Enforcement Unit. He's one of them. And then the others, I don't know all of them, but there's specific people that I know that was extremely arrogant and they just blatantly refused to even make themselves available to have their fingerprints taken.
Thank you.
If I may just pick up on that line of questioning, Commissioner Spies. We read Chief Mapie's directive of the 21st of September. That's your Annexure RS 18, where he sets out the process to be followed.
Is it not December, Ms.?
December, did I say different month? 21st December 2021.
Correct.
I apologize. It's for the confusion. And that is your Annexure RS 18. You state, as you have highlighted to the chair, that the Specialized Services Division under Brigadier Mkhwanazi refused to submit their fingerprints. You now have also made reference to Regulation 11, which stipulates that it shall be an offense to refuse to have your fingerprints taken. In his directive at item 1, page 48, Chief Mapie indicated that disciplinary action will be instituted against any non-compliance. Are you aware of steps, if any, taken against Brigadier Mkhwanazi and or members of his division for the refusal to have their fingerprints taken?
No further steps were taken against them because in my testimony, as I will get to it, this process has been killed and stopped by Kasheka from HR.
So as of December 22, well, I'll take it's February because this process was supposed to conclude in February 22. There was this absolute refusal to have the fingerprints taken and you'd retired in February 2025.
Correct.
For completeness, at the time you retired, had their fingerprints been taken?
Not that I know of.
I'm going to, because of this line of questioning, I'm going to jump slightly ahead and we don't have to project. You have Annexure RS 21 appearing from page 61. This you say are the results of, or the status of all members whose fingerprints who were vetted. And
Correct.
You have a legend explaining their respective status. My question for the moment is, do we read Annexure RS 21 to be exclusive of all members falling under the Specialized Services Division? Is that a correct interpretation?
Now, RS21 is the full database of
Yes.
everyone. That is the 3,762 members.
Yes.
But of that, and it's color-coded then, the no illicit activities is marked in green.
No, you will get to that part. I just want to know those 3,700 you list
Yes.
at RS21, you provide the status of each. My question is it a correct reading that this list does not include any member of Brigadier Mkhwanazi's Specialized Services Division?
Now, their names will be there under outstanding.
Okay.
Marked in yellow, because the ones marked in yellow, we haven't yet taken their fingerprints. Those are the ones who hasn't their fingerprints taken. There is obviously some that has been off sick or not at work and their fingerprints couldn't be taken. So out of the 211 that is outstanding at that stage, those include, and you will see at the divisions and sections that it's specialized services. There's here and there another individual which is from another section, but it is because of reason.
Okay.
The southern region is, for instance, the one that they were still busy. Their fingerprints been taken and late submitted. We haven't got the results back.
Okay, thanks for that.
I'm sure, Ms. Sildo, we are not expected to actually see what's on here, not with the size of the lettering.
It shall be reproduced in what A3
Unless
and
you-
refile,
unless
yes.
you arrange magnifying glasses for us.
Indeed, Chair. We have thought of how to engage with this for the listeners. It's difficult to work through it. We cannot project it on the screen because it contains personal information of members.
I doubt that we really have to.
Then we don't have to.
I think it's enough to just get an idea of the numbers by looking at the color coding. That's
Okay.
enough for our purposes.
Then
Don't worry about
having to
three or
share,
whatever
yes.
else. Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Lo, if I may just follow up on an
Yes.
earlier question, just in case it wasn't answered. You were asked, Commissioner, whether the 200, the people that belong under or that fall under specialized services, any of them had been fingerprinted by the time you left. And your answer was you're not aware if that was done. And I want to ask slightly different question. The directive, you say, contemplated that there would be annual vetting process starting from the date from 2022. As at the time that, and you've told us that that process was stopped, the 2022 process was stopped, so it didn't conclude. By the time you left, had any vetting at all, the annual vetting that was contemplated, had it happened or was it happening at all?
No further. That 376 that we have vetted from inside the department, that was the only vetting that was done. And then the process to carry on from that was physically stopped. And thereafter, no vetting was again done on criminal records. There is a later process where just after Commissioner, when Mkhwanazi was appointed as a deputy chief, then, and this vetting process was started, there was an instruction from the chief of police to the 3 deputy chiefs that we must be fully vetted. In that process, he again refused to be vetted at all. And Commissioner Kwabe, forms were supplied to him, and he started the process to be vetted. And I answered the chief back to say, I'm already vetted to a top secret clearance level. Here's my top secret clearance security number. My own security vetting has then, at a stage, it's only valid for 5 years. It expired and it was redone, and I've received my new one again. So I'm fully vetted to top secret, which now expires in 2030 somewhere. I don't know the exact date, but it's somewhere in 2030, I think August 2030.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Ms. Lo.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi. Staying then with RS21, which we will not project. It's color-coded green, yellow, red, and without giving any detail, for future reference, can you summarize what the color coding means? What is green, what is highlighted red, and yellow, the legend?
This is an Excel spreadsheet containing all the employees of Ekurhuleni Metro Police in 2022 that was used to capture the results of the criminal record vetting. Everything covered in green is when no illicit activity was recorded, and that is a total of 3,174 people. The ones colored in a light beige color is the southern region who has submitted late because of their large volumes, and they've already submitted 102 SAPs, but we haven't received the results of that 102 yet back. And then there's a group of illicit activity in a dark red, which is 275 officers that have illicit activity recorded. And then the 211 is still outstanding, which gives us a total of 3,762 at that stage. Under the dark red...
Sorry, Commissioner. In the red, that is where illicit activity has been identified, there's the total number, but then to the far right, there's another number. What does that signify?
So that's a lighter red, and it states awaiting trial. So when illicit activities sometimes come back. It means that an officer has, for instance, been arrested and he's already been charged and he already pleaded and his criminal case is running. So we don't yet have a result of that person. So we just indicate it as awaiting trial because of the process is still ongoing.
Oh, thank you very much. Because it's just sticking out and hanging, as it were. I did not see the heading above. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Do you have in the list officers who have been convicted?
And what is that number? I can't quite read it.
It's 100.
100. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
In the list, do you have officers who have been convicted?
That's out of the 275.
So when you say illicit activity identified, the 275 have been convicted,
Yes, Commissioner.
and then the 100 are
Yes.
awaiting trial.
Yes, Commissioner. I do have made a graph which I presented at the same meeting on page 60, which is RS20.
Before we get to RS20, we'll get to RS20. Can we stay with 21 for the moment? You were still going through the color coding methodology you applied. So you had said the beige, those highlighted in a beigeish color, those were involved the southern region mainly, which has a large number of members.
Correct,
And had
Commissioner.
not completed the process.
Correct, Commissioners. Their fingerprints were already taken and submitted, but we still haven't received feedback from the South African Police Service on their results.
Then you have the yellows. What does yellow?
The yellow means that the fingerprints has not been taken and the fingerprints has also not been submitted. So they are still outstanding and therefore nothing has happened with them yet.
And it is in this category that members of the Specialized Services Division would fall.
Correct, Commissioners.
Now, if you could go back to page 50, that is an extra RS19. There appears to be a memorandum from Chief Mappier dated the 6th of February 2024, addressed to El Kasheka, HOD Human Resource Department. You see that? And it's signed at the bottom by him. Is it this document? It says, kindly find attached report from the EMPD to Human Resources Department regarding the status quo of EMPD employees with criminal and or illicit activities recorded against them as requested by the Human Resources Department in the meeting held on the 27th of February 2024 at HR Corporate Head Office in Germiston. Do you see that? At paragraph 52 of your statement, you reference a meeting you had with Mr. Kasheka. That date of the 27th of February 2024, that Chief Mappier refers to at page 50, is it the same meeting or is it a different meeting? Because your meeting of at paragraph 52 does not appear to have a date.
The meeting that we held with HR, so in the beginning of February, there was a meeting which is the SPEXCO meeting.
Yes.
But then it was postponed, the meeting that was set up with HR. And that meeting took place on 27 February. On the letter of Commissioner Mappier, the date that it was issued is actually 6 March. Because the letter wasn't issued before the meeting. It must be a typo because we actually had on the 5th of March, we had drafted the item already based on what was discussed in that meeting. We must provide all the information to HR. So the letter that Commissioner Mappier signed referenced the 27 February meeting, which we was held with HR. It is that meeting at page 52 where we held a meeting with HR.
So you are suggesting that the date at page 50 might be wrong. Instead of 6 February, it must read 6 March 2024.
Correct.
And I think that attached to that would appear to be a report dated the 5th of March 2024. So I think that correction would accord actually with the contents of the document at the report at page 51, which is
Correct,
of a later
Commissioners.
date.
Even paragraph 1, Advocate Silla, on page 50, it refers to a meeting of 24 February. So,
Indeed, 27 February.
yeah.
Yes. So we do accept that typo. Do you want to deal with this report starting at paragraph 51?
At this meeting that we held on the 27th of meeting, the people present there was Ms. Kasheka, who's the head of human resources. She was the chair. There was Mr. Lefu Makoba, Colonel Van Rooyen from the Metro Police, Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi, Colonel Ivan Duplessis, and there was also Mr. Maripe Matakocha. He's a divisional head at corporate HR. And then it was discussed there is to say that we as Metro Police cannot do this process. The process must be restarted on suggestion from Brigadier Mkhwanazi from scratch, because the people who took the fingerprints and the people who's involved in this process cannot be trusted. And then it was resolved by Kasheka that we will submit our complete database together with the draft report and the letter to her office, and it shall be managed by Lefu Makoba. So, and we must provide all the information, everything over to them, and it will then be dealt with them. So we came back, and the next day we submitted this draft. What we say is a draft report is normally corporate human resources will do a council report because it's human resources and HR related. But to expedite the process, we drafted the whole item already for them to say this is what we suggest, and we submitted that to them. The Excel spreadsheet itself, I encrypted it with a serious password, and I then sent that via email to Lefu Makoba, and I've sent the password via WhatsApp to him. We had up and down email correspondence where he stated he cannot open it because he forwarded to some other people, and I explained to him, well, I don't want to release it where you can forward it to anyone else because it's POPI. POPI Act is critical, and this is containing all the database information of employees plus criminal records, and I don't want this to be circulated in the department at all. When eventually he came back and he CC'd everyone and he says, but provide the password to him and via email. So after about a week later, he said to me, but POPI doesn't apply because it's internal correspondence. And I then sent the password via email to him as well, which he then replied back to me to say, okay, you can open it now. It was then forwarded, this item, and everything was forwarded to corporate and legal. And corporate and legal made comments to say that our approach as Metro Police is wrong. We cannot do, because our suggestion was that we give the employees a chance to provide their expungement proof, and if nothing of that happens, is that they then be either dismissed or that disciplinary steps be taken against them. So corporate and legal came back and says, no, you cannot dismiss them, you cannot do this process, we must leave it in the hands of corporate HR. And exactly at that point, that's where it stopped. It never went further than that at all again.
Can I find out from you, you say Ms. Kasheka directed that you submit all the data that you had collected by then, including what's reflected at RS21 and RS20, which we shall deal with shortly, which is a summary of the nature of the crimes that members were found either to have been guilty of or awaiting trial for. Who is Mr. Lefu Makoba? What position did he hold at the time? And what particular expertise did he have in regard to matters of vetting? Do you know?
I do not know his exact position that he held, but he was at corporate HR and he used to report to the division head employee relations, Kolani and Nisa, who would be in a better position to actually explain Lefu Makoba's position. But Lefu was always involved in the way disciplinary matters is operated from. So he was running in that section. I don't know his exact position, but he was dealing with the disciplinary cases at the back end in the HR process.
You also indicate that in that same meeting where this instruction was given, present was a Mr. Maripe Matakocha. Who is that? And what position did he hold?
At that stage, I also didn't know his position there, but Mr. Matakocha was a normal HR person, most probably a senior manager or divisional head at HR. And he was the one who, during my suspension, which I will come to much later, he's the one who signed and recommended it. So I know Mr. Matakocha. Also, in my earlier testimony, I mentioned the incident where council took a resolution to adopt a new structure. Mr. Matakocha is the one who presented this new structure and the one who I discussed with, where he stated to me that my position is not in the structure anymore, but they will keep me till my contract ends and I will be on the site and read newspapers or provide information to them and assist everyone during my period when the contract is still running.
As a matter of interest, in that period when you were supposed to read newspapers, did the EMPD undertake to provide you with the newspapers, or were you expected to buy them for yourself?
Commissioners, no, I believe it was tongue-in-cheek from him, just making a stupid remark. It's because I was cross because of the fact that even in my mind, I couldn't understand how you can change a complete municipal police structure organigram without consulting any of the municipal police officers. Not management, not me as a divisional head. That whole structure was changed by corporate HR without any input from us at all. We didn't even discuss it and we didn't give input into it. And then council makes this resolution and we discover it when it's leaked from the council, because the moment it goes in a council resolution, it becomes a public document, and we obviously discover it then. And in this arguments, when I ask him, so where am I? Why am my position not here? And that's when I won't say tongue-in-cheek remark is, but you've got a contract, we will pay you your salary. What do you worry about? You can sit and read newspapers every day.
We dealt with your RS21, which is that big document that provides the results for vetting in respect of all 3,700 members. You have summarized this. No, you haven't summarized it. Insofar as crimes committed or convicted for, you have put this in a table format, a graph format rather, to indicate the extent and the nature of the crimes and the extent to which members are either convicted currently or are facing charges for. Would you like to talk to this graph?
On page 60, I have created this graph, and it's obviously in the spreadsheet, just a graph which is sorted from the highest amount of crimes. And the crimes as it's captured is obviously, as it comes from the 69, it is just like a abbreviation of the crime. And it then runs from the top of assault cases where officers were found guilty for assault with a total of 58 as the most. And it goes down to uttering, which is 1. Must I read every one of them, Commissioners?
I think you can just highlight the key ones, or maybe, I won't say the most concerning, because all crimes are concerning.
So from the top, it goes assault was 58, theft cases was 41, driving under the influence is 33, reckless and negligent driving 28, murder awaiting trial was 15, fraud awaiting trial was 14, robbery awaiting trial was 8.
May I interrupt you there? Okay, we don't have to go through all of them. Just based on what you've just read, murder awaiting trial 15, fraud awaiting trial 14, robbery awaiting trial 8, fraud 7. So effectively, these are members in the system who are awaiting trial or convicted for these crimes.
With the exception of fraud, Ms.
Except for the exception of fraud.
Yes.
The murder, there is already a little bit lower down. There is 4 officers that's been found guilty for murder as well. So there is 15 awaiting trial, meaning they haven't been found guilty yet. Their trial is still ongoing. But further down the list, there's 4 for murder. there's 4 for rape, there's 3 for robbery. So even though at the top there's a awaiting trial portion, there is officers that have been found guilty already that is in the service with criminal records, very serious criminal records.
And
You say those convictions are in respect of murder, rape, and fraud, did you say? The convictions.
If I categorize from what I consider as serious crime for police officers, there's like negligent loss of firearm is 6, but if we go to things like extortion is 5, housebreaking is 5, kidnapping is 5, murder is 4, rape is 4, robbery is 3, pointing of firearm, defeating, gathering act. So from the highest list, which is more related to the Schedule 1 type of offences, the murder, the rape, and that there is, and then there's at the top the awaiting trial portions that is still not concluded.
just to make sure we read it correctly, in some instances, taking for instance, an example, fraud. You have fraud awaiting trial, then you have fraud. You see that at the top.
Correct.
Where you have not indicated awaiting trial, does that mean the figures you give are in respect of convictions?
Correct, Commissioners.
So anything here that is not highlighted as awaiting trial, these are all members have these convictions, including rape, murder.
Correct, Commissioners.
And they're in the system.
Correct.
And robbery.
Yes, Chair. Okay.
Commissioner, because you said earlier that when you join the service, you get vetted, can we conclude from this document that these offenses were committed after the members entered the service? Because I'm assuming if they were committed before, you would not have become a member of EMPD because you would have failed the vetting.
No, Commissioner. That is unfortunately an assumption on your side.
Yeah.
Some of these cases stem back from the late 80s, 90s, and how the officers passed the initial recruitment process is also unknown to me then, because their fingerprints were taken, but how they get forced into the system, I don't know. But these records obviously relate to everything the South African Police Service have as a criminal record based on the fingerprints. And some of the cases, if you look at the convictions, the conviction dates were long ago as well, prior to their actual appointment date. There's one which is a very strange matter. It has been reported to us as well. There was an officer, he's out of the service now because he got caught again and then he was sentenced to imprisonment and he sits in prison. The officer was found guilty of murder. He was never sentenced. And this is a very old case, which I don't understand as a policeman how that happened, if you can be found guilty of murder and then not sentenced. But it's an old case. It's things that we picked up.
What is the policy? What is the EMPD policy regarding the employment of people who have previous convictions?
It's legislation that prescribes it. It's in terms of Regulation 11 of the Municipal Police Services, one of the requirements of the minimum requirements to be appointed as a member is that you may not have a previous criminal record, except if it's politically motivated or there's a specific wording related to that. But you may not have a criminal record upon appointment. It's one of the challenging factors we have, specifically of interpretation in Ekurhuleni, not in the rest of the country, but in Ekurhuleni they interpret the words, because the sub-regulation starts with the exact words, upon appointment, you may not have a criminal record. They take it as upon appointment, not your career. So it's as if they, as HR, think, well, you're going to be appointed and thereafter you can build a career of criminal. And that is maybe something that needs to be changed, that it makes the word less interpretation available for people to say, but you may never have a criminal, in my mind, you may never have a criminal record as a policeman. There could be, and this is something that I say with respect, there could be matters that is happening in your career, which could be waived, or there could be a process of expungement that happened. As an example, you could be involved in an incident where there's, let's say, serious robbery or a cash in transit, and there's a shooting incident, and you shoot a robber, but you also shoot an innocent citizen, and you get found guilty for culpable homicide, maybe, in that matter. In the execution of your duties, and you won't really have intent or anything like that, there could be an expungement process if the law allows it. But at the moment, the law states, upon appointment, you shall not have a criminal record. And this is interpreted by Ekurhuleni HR to mean that that day when I was appointed, 1 April 1991, I didn't have a record then. Or when we established as the Metro Police, 16 February 2002, I didn't have a criminal record at that day. But thereafter, it is an open field according to them. There's no policy as well, and that is problematic. There's no policy what happens if an officer do get a criminal record during his service. There should be an incapacity process where you are not fit to be a policeman anymore, and you should be worked out of the system. One of the things that is absolutely critical, but this is my own opinion, there's a few others that have the same opinion, is that in terms of the singularity of what the Constitution, singularity of policing in the country, where all policing service must be the same manner, is that we can have different payrolls, meaning that local government, you're employed by local government or you're employed by national police. But at the bottom end, the standards of a disciplinary agreement, the way that you are being dealt with as a policeman should be the same. We have, for instance, a large challenge because my officers are locally bound. Ekurhuleni officer is employed in Ekurhuleni. The Ekurhuleni HR systems, computer systems, for instance, doesn't have access to Home Affairs, Harness, or the African Police. There's no interface between these systems. So my officer can physically go to Durban on holiday, and he can commit a rape, he can commit a robbery, he can commit anything wrong there. We will never know it happened. The officer can come back, and every time he has to appear in court, he takes a day's leave and he fly out, and we will only discover it if he doesn't pitch for work one day because he sits in prison. And we have there's even a strange anomaly that happened now. One of our officers was found guilty of murder. He actually, at Vosloorus police station, he shot and killed his wife, who was a captain in the police. He shot and killed her in the charge office of the police station. Our police station and their police station is very close to one another. They're separated by like a parking space between us. And he shot and killed his wife. He came out of the police station, and then obviously everyone, it's blue on blue, police and Metro Police, all rush out because of the shot. And then he tried to commit suicide, and he shot himself in the head. He was paramedics on scene, rescued. He actually looks like he sustained no damage, and he was released from hospital. He was eventually found guilty, and he was incarcerated, and I believe it was like a period of 15 years. He came out on parole now in this year, and he lodged an unfair dismissal case because he wasn't processed in the correct manner, and Ekurhuleni reinstated him. So the systems doesn't speak to one another, and that is something that if we, for instance, want to take, if I want to check if my officer have a criminal record, I don't have any access to it at all. I cannot see it. The only manner I can do it is I take his fingerprints manually, I submit it to South African Police Service. I, as municipal police, must pay the South African Police Service either 85 or 180 rand as a government entity to South African Police Service to say, please check this fingerprints for me. They will take weeks and months to do it and then come back with a result to me. So I, as a police, municipal police, don't have access to criminal records of my officers. My officer could be in domestic violence incidents, be involved at home against his spouse or wife. And the police could hold an inquiry about his fitness to possess a firearm in terms of the Firearms Control Act. Or there could be a domestic violence protection order against the officer, and where the court makes a ruling that he's unfit to possess a firearm. That is captured into SAP systems and court systems. I don't have access to that. What we have in the meantime arranged between us and the South African Police Service is that we provide them with a list of our officers' names. And then at the end of every month, the South African Police Service draw an extract of the firearm unfit list to us to say the following officers have been captured in their system as unfit to possess a firearm. But that is one of the critical things that is a problem, is that we have even approached SALGA, which is the government, the South African Local Government Association, which is the employer actually, to state to them, can we please, and we already had workshops around this, can we have a separate set of conditions of service for municipal police officers than the rest of council, which is aligned to this, to be similar to say, it's not the same because it's two different organizations, but that we have systems and disciplinary agreements that a policeman must not only act in the same manner towards every citizen, but he must also be treated in the same manner at the back end. And that unfortunately doesn't exist.
Thank you, Commissioner. You concluded paragraph 52, basically that all this information was shared with Ms. Kasheka's department as per her instruction. So she and her department became aware of what you have just shared with the Commission. Is that correct?
Correct.
You then say this process was subsequently halted and to date no further steps have been taken.
Correct, Commissioners.
I take it when you say it was halted, do you mean that it just didn't proceed any further?
Correct. Nothing further happened. We haven't had any meetings further to that effect. Nothing else in the department took place.
Was there any feedback by Ms. Kasheka as the head of HR or her office as regards this vetting process? Was there any formal communication to
There was no further feedback from Kasheka and neither from Revo, even though on the sidelines I harassed him the whole time and asked him what's happening. There was no further feedback.
And you recall from Chief Mapie's directive of the 21st of December 2022, he had indicated that disciplinary action will be instituted against non-compliance. What did Chief Mapie at this juncture, which we say is around the 6th of March 2024, do when this process was halted with the results that you have highlighted in both Annexure RS20 and RS21 regarding members who've got criminal records in the system and members who refuse to be vetted? What did the chief do about all this?
Chief Mapie was already under tremendous pressure of being either suspended or placed on special leave. And I don't know if there was nothing that I, as deputy chief, ever saw that was ever done against any of these officers who refused to submit their fingerprints, or even the people who had a guilty that was found guilty. There was no further steps taken against any of these officers.
So, you're suggesting that Chief Mapie could potentially have been under one of his many suspensions at the time?
Correct.
Because we know that he was finally suspended. The latest is the 25th of September 2024. And this is happening around the 6th of March 2024.
Commissioner Mapie was already in August 2023, after Brigadier Mkhwanazi's disciplinary case has been pushed aside and trying to be stalled. There was already incidents where the then city manager, Mkhwanazi, actually in front of me, she said to him, I'm suspending you now. So this happened here 18 August 2023 already. So he was already suspended, even though the records will indicate that at a later stage, they altered the documents to actually make that he was placed on special leave for 30 days. And Mkhwanazi was placed in his position to act. So it was a constant harassment against him, and there was no continuity that anyone do it. But as far as my knowledge is, up to the date when I retired on 28 February, nothing was done against these officers at all. And the process was not started or concluded at all.
And equally so, there was no explanation from the upper echelons of EMPD as to the status of this process or why it is not proceeding. It was never communicated to the divisional heads.
Correct, Commissioner.
Was this, to your knowledge, was this matter ever reported to council of Ekurhuleni?
It wasn't formally reported to council, and that I know of. I do know that there were council questions. The process of council work where councillors will, during a council, they will submit written questions, and then the individual departments must answer. So I know that there have been questions from councillors that was raised in council, but because it is an HR-related issue, it was never answered by our department. We saw the questions, but it was always answered by HR. I don't know their answers because I don't see other departments' answers. But from Metro Police, it was because it is HR-related, it was always pushed back towards HR to say, answer this question.
Is it then fair to assume that equally so, you do not know what attitude council adopted on this matter?
No, I don't know
Personally,
the
you
attitude
don't.
of council against this matter.
You conclude then at paragraph 55 to say, to your knowledge, Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi is not vetted, neither has his fingerprints been checked. I guess what we do is to qualify that as at the date of your retirement.
Correct. At
Things
the
could
date of
have
my
happened post your
retirement, it's not been
retirement, yeah.
vetted.
Okay.
Commissioner, that conclusion, while it speaks to Brigadier Mkhwanazi, it would be fair from your evidence to say, in fact, his whole specialized services unit that had refused to be vetted as at the time of your departure. To your knowledge, none of them had been vetted.
Correct, Commissioner. For criminal records,
For criminal records.
there's not a single person except Commissioner Mapie. There's not a single person in the Ekurhuleni Metro Police who has been fully vetted with a classification from either crime intelligence or from the State Security Agency.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi. Commissioner Spies, that then takes us to your next heading. You had dealt with the systemic concerns regarding vetting. Do you recall that? Just to verify your paragraphs 53 and 54. You reference your own
Correct, Commissioners.
Clearance.
It is, as I stated earlier, is that Commissioner Mkhwanazi, when he was instructed, the three of us were instructed to be fully vetted by, and as I stated earlier, crime intelligence as a division of South African Police Services is the one that was tasked to actually vet us all. But crime intelligence has huge capacity problems. So we then, together with the portfolio committee, was arranged that State Security Agency assist us so that there's two capacities where we can actually do the process. And an arrangement was made at national level through the Chiefs Forum, specifically with state security agencies to assist us to vet all the levels from Chief of Police for all the municipal police services, from Chief of Police to at least brigadier level, that the top management, plus their secretaries and people who have access to sensitive information, because we all attend meetings with the National Police Commissioner, with Parliament, with Prof joints, with NAT joints, and therefore a decision was made that SSA will assist us to get this process rolling. And that instruction was given by Commissioner Mapie to the three of us that we shall ensure that we submit our fingerprints, a pack of forms to do this vetting. There's a very thick pack of forms and documents that you must add it. You must, for instance, add bank records and information like that. And Commissioner Mkhwanazi at that stage, if blatantly refused and says he will not be vetted, he is exempted from being vetted. That is his words that he actually used. He's exempted from being vetted. It's not part of his contract.
Commissioner, yesterday we made very good progress on pronouncing Mkhwanazi. Let's revert to that, please.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner, when you say at that point, Brigadier Mkhwanazi blatantly said that he will not be vetted, is this a different discussion in addition to the big meeting that you had where he walked out?
Correct, Commissioners. The first meeting that we had in February was dealing with the vetting, and we used the word vetting actually wrong here. It's with a criminal check. So the first one was dealing with a criminal check of all employees, just fingerprints, criminal check. The vetting exercise is when you actually do a full vetting of, it's close to a lifestyle audit, and it's done by crime intelligence or by state security agency, where they verify your interaction with foreign agents, passports, travel out of the country. They have referees that you must provide that they go and check your bank records. All your assets must be declared, and they then verify it. And you even go at the end of all the investigations done by them, you will go for a polygraph test. And only if you pass everything, then they will issue a certificate or classification of specific vetting. And it was also decided at the meeting that we will be vetted up to a top secret level, which is only valid for 5 years, where a confidential level is valid for 10 years, to make sure that we have the correct vetting.
And this vetting, Do you know if the city manager ever became aware that this was required to be done and that Brigadier Mkhwanazi had refused to do it?
I do not know if there was any communication to the city manager.
Okay. Thank you.
But sorry, commissioners, it is part of vetting is also when you're appointed in the senior manager positions in terms of local government structures, you must also comply with what we call the COCTA aptitude and tests, and vetting is part of that as well in that process. So she should have known this process because of, maybe not because of the police angle, but definitely because of the senior management angle.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Did you say that call, the call he made at a meeting, was to the head of HR? When you say he was visibly annoyed, even frothing at the mouth.
No, he made the call directly to the city manager.
To the city manager.
He called the city manager, and then when
the city manager was aware then of the.
It was about the fingerprints checking that his unit and he hasn't been checked.
Okay.
So he made a call about that. It's not about the vetting.
Okay.
The vetting came a little bit later when the
all right,
letter was sent to us for full vetting.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spies. And then you conclude that discussion with your own clearance certificate that you say it's valid until the 31st of August 2030, and that will be your annex to RS22, you confirm?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And this is issued by SSA State Security?
Correct, Commissioners.
We then move then to the next topic from page 24, and here you deal with the suspension of Chief Mapie and other irregular appointments within EMPD. Let's start with paragraph 56, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
On the 17th of August 2023, earlier in the morning, there were WhatsApps being circulated that Chief Mapie will be suspended. And it's like, people make these comments and remarks the whole time. I just ignore all of that going on, and my office is complaining to me what's happening with this. And then in the afternoon, we received an instruction that all the brigadiers and the deputy chiefs must immediately report to the city manager's boardroom in Germiston. Upon arrival, as we started to walk in through where receptionist sat, as we start to walk in, and this is senior people, this is myself, the deputy chief, the chief of police, and the brigadiers there were, I think it's 8 brigadiers, I will just count them again, but I've listed their names. As we walked in, the VIP protection officers from the city manager who's protecting her confiscated all our cell phones, mobile devices, tablets, and even our computers. And they didn't allow us into the boardroom with any electronic devices. But I walked in with I've got a notebook diary, everything. When I attend meetings, I make notes of everything as I go along. Normally, I would make notes electronically, and then later I will, because it's faster for me to type and then write. I'm right very ugly. But in the meeting itself, I actually made notes in my notebook, and I recorded the whole meeting from the notes. I tried to write as fast as possible as individual was speaking. And immediately after the meeting concluded, I left for home. And when I got home, I then typed that whole meeting over from the notebook so that while it's still fresh in my mind, where I can see I used an abbreviation that only I would know, I would actually just expand the abbreviation and type the minutes over. I have attached that photocopies of my notebook as well to say, but I took photos of the specific notebook in case the notebook ever goes missing. Then I have photos of the notebook as well.
And the photocopies of your notebook are attached as RS23, and the transcribed notes typed are RS23 small a, in bracket A. You confirm that?
That's correct.
Now, and starting from page 96 with RS23. The actual notebook from which you took the pictures that now make up an extra RS23, you still have that notebook?
Correct.
Should the commissioners need to satisfy themselves that this is not your creation post fact, You have the actual notebook.
I still have the notebook, and I forwarded this in WhatsApps as well. So there's even proof to date and timestamp that. There's also, as I wrote in my notebook, it starts at 12 o'clock, and when I ended the meeting, it ended at 15:45 at the end of my notebook of these notes.
Okay. Having then confirmed that, I think we shall not subject the commission to your handwriting, so perhaps we turn to Annexure RS 23 bracket A to understand what transpired at that meeting.
The order around the table, and as they are listed, the attendees, it is the order that they sat. I sat with around the table in the boardroom. To my left, and if you see my name is right at the bottom, just before Mrs. Kasheka's name, the city manager sat at the head of the table. And as you go around from her, as I'm facing the boardroom, it was the city manager, then it was Chief Mapie, then it was at that stage Brigadier Mkhwanazi, and then Brigadier van der Merwe, Deputy Chief Mazolo, Deputy Chief Twabe, Brigadier Nkosi. It was then, this side of the table was Mr. Ledwaba, Brigadier Gina, Brigadier Mashlangu, and Brigadier Besaidenout, and then myself, and then Kasheka from this side. So we sat around the table. The city manager opened it, and she was lambasting the department and stating stuff that our revenue collection has dropped, it's no tools of trade. She stated that the ammunition tender has been refused because the NEL, at that stage we had an ammunition tender where the only manufacturer of large-scale ammunition in this country was PMP, which is a subsidiary of the NEL, Pretoria Metal Pressing Works, that makes 9mm ammunition. So we had what we call a Section 110, Section 32 process buying transversal from another state department process. And this failed because she refused to have it done because she stated the NEL is directly involved in state capture and we must go out on an open tender again so that we can do it. And she then stated she appointed Spies, who was me, but there's no changes in the department. This is a year after my appointment. And she carried on lambasting everything, low staff morale. And what is critical about what she's saying and the way she is saying it is that everyone else was then given a chance to speak, except I didn't get a chance. Just before the meeting, Commissioner Mapie spoke to me in the passages as we walked up the stairs. And he said to me, Commissioner Spies, please do not say anything today. Let us just take whatever is said, punishment, whatever is said, and let us go fix it at the back end. Because the city manager is out to get you, don't say anything. So I said to him, Chief, it's fine, I'll keep quiet. I don't want to lambaste anything or bring anything out in the open. We'll fix the department as we go along. So everyone got a chance to bend. But commissioners, when Mkhwanazi started to speak, everything that he said was as if he and the city manager had colluded and they were speaking the same speech. And he was making comments about this de facto chiefs. The Chief Mapie is running, is a bad manager and he's not running the department good enough because there's de facto chiefs. And he mentioned that I'm one of the chiefs that runs the department.
Perhaps, apologies, Commissioner Spies, it might be easiest and quickest if we deal with that side of things with reference to the actual transcribed quote-unquote meeting. And for that purpose, I would refer you to page 105. Having listed the attendees and you highlight that the meeting was open, you have at the bottom of that page a recordal of what was stated by JM. And according to your attendees list, you have JM as the director, J. Mkhwanazi.
He was at that stage appointed as the Director of Specialized Services with a brigadier rank.
Okay, perhaps then if you just read that paragraph at the bottom of 105 to about literally the first quarter of 106. Thank you.
Commissioners, if I can just go 2 paragraphs back, because it touches on what later actually happens as well.
Please
It states where the whole punch is through it, is that never before have we opened cases against one another and running to IPID to open cases. She can also play the same game and go to IPID to open cases against us. She can do the very same thing we do. Why are we doing it? It must be stopped. Directors are treated differently. One gets overtime while the others don't. And dealing with investigations criminally. There's way too many labor cases. It's clear that we are leaderless. The department is dysfunctional. And then she addressed Chief Mapie. Mapie, what happened? It's your second term. She addresses the chief directly. And then she asked, who wants to say something? And a group of the officers put their hands up. JM then started to say, CM, he addressed her. He doesn't speak to anyone else. He says, the department is dysfunctional. We don't have a chief of police. I work for government, not using my connections. But in this department, only people who have connections are promoted or listened to. And all the connections are from Benoni. No one else in EMPD, and only they are close to the chief. We have another de facto chief of police, Duplessis, that gives instructions as if he's running the department, and then seniors must listen to him, a junior. And if you refuse, then he threatens you defying the chief's instructions. Another chief superintendent, Tipa, also have been arrested and not suspended, and no steps taken against. Then another de facto chief, Spies. I'm not even respecting or saluting him anymore. Said by him is nothing, but he runs the department. Projects, logistics projects never discussed with him or with ops, just to whatever he wishes. Supporting but sit in another land. No talking with ops, who took projects or even precincts. No funds, but before COVID there was funds. He sits at office, 300 people but no space. No toilet, all a mess. Another de facto chief of police, Nisa. He will deal with officers. You cannot raise any issues. Cases are open and they do the planning exit strategy. Any Erasmus are remote controlled by Spies and Mapie. Integrity and standards are hiding in cupboards. Anyone not close will be nailed. I lost respect for them and refused to salute them. Operations, no one is clean in this department. Bricks is coming, nothing is done, no one is signing off. If his name is on it, then no one will sign. Ubaba. Burying alive. He went to see Mapie and was forced to sit and wait for 5 hours. As a senior, he had to wait while he was in his office. He only saw him after Deputy Chief Mazolo arrived.
And those words you attribute to Brigadier Mkhwanazi in the meeting?
Correct.
The meeting then continued, and I see there are different speakers, as your note reflects. Is there anything in particular you'd like to draw the Commission's attention to?
The other speakers had just very, very little to say. They had like one or two sentences. So Brigadier van der Merwe, for instance, that because she mentioned the ammunition tender, he just submitted to her that we have initiated the tender again, and we have submitted already application to supply chain. We're waiting for a contract number, and we have specifications ready. Then she answered him immediately back to say, but your specifications must be changed so that there can be successful bidders. And he answers back to say, but our specifications are as per legislation and are correct, but it will be submitted as soon as we have a contract number. The main portion, and that is linked to previous discussions already, when we procure ammunition, one of the requirements in our tenders is that the supplier who gets the tender must have a dealership license from the South African Police Service, CFR. Because only people who have a dealership license may deal with ammunition. And what has happened is that companies have been appointed in the past where they don't have a dealership license, they become a middleman. So they effectively will buy the ammunition from someone and then sell it to us. And that is illegal because you are then in possession, even if it's just on paper maybe, but the ammunition must be delivered by us in terms of the tender at our offices. And that transfer of the ammunition and moving of it, the company who provides us must comply and be legal. So there was an instruction from her that we must remove that requirement that anyone can provide the ammunition to us. And the answer was, but we cannot. The law says there must be this in it. And that's what Brigadier van der Merwe then answered her back. Mr. Mazolo, just everyone, you'll see has a very, very little input into it. It was more, there's problems with our structure. The council was busy with a reorganization and the structure was not yet implemented and officers were placed. So a lot of officers were making comments about the structure. Brigadier Nkosi, he is also originating from the so-called Benoni officers. And where this remark comes from is that when the Metro Police were established, or the city of Ekurhuleni was established, it was an amalgamation of 9 existing councils, which is the Benoni, Kempton, Nigel, Boksburg, Brakpan, Springs, Alberton, Germiston, and Edenvale. Those cities were amalgamated into one. And obviously, when the Metro Police was started, the traffic officers from those departments were the inauguration members and founding members of the municipal police. And then there's groupings, because officers obviously know one another well. They've been working for years together. So groupings started to happen, that there's a group of officers from Benoni and there's a group of officers from Germiston or a group from Kempton Park. And the illusion here is that the officers from Benoni are being treated specially. And Brigadier Nkosi is also an ex-Benoni officer. So he started to say, CM, the Benoni employees, that Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi, and immediately she cut him off. Stop, don't speak about what anyone here has said. It's if you want to say anything else. So everyone was, it's as if the meeting was done so that Julius Mkhwanazi can speak, she can speak. The rest was just there as ad lib for a short paragraph and that. And
Before you move ahead, I think we have a sense of who the main drivers of the meeting were. And for whatever reason, others did not or could not speak. I would like to draw your attention to at page 107. There is a conversation there, or there is an input being made by OB, and going back to the list of attendees, you have OB listed as Director O. Bezuidenhout, correct?
Correct.
I mean, I tried to read what you have recorded here, and perhaps you are best placed to explain it to us all. It starts at about midway of page 107, where OB says, ma'am, just 2 things. Disciplinary matters, hearings, outcomes are dismissed by 90%. Then it's going to deal with WOA roadblocks and the like. Would you like to expound on that, please?
The disciplinary matters hearings that he refers there to is that a lot of our officers, the disciplinary hearings take place, but because we are working under the SALGBC SALGA disciplinary hearing process, the chairpersons are not from the Metro Police. They could be from any department. And the officers are treated as if they're normal council employees. And then if the officer committed, for instance, it could be a matter of bribery, where the officer stopped an offender and he took money from him. And then there's a whole disciplinary case that happened, is that the officer it's possible that he would be dismissed by the chairperson, but then that officer will run to the Labour Court and he will be reinstated because HR will not contest the matter and the officer will be reinstated. It also happens when the chairpersons, when an officer, for instance, it's a simple incident that took place during COVID. There was obviously lockdown level 5 and 4 where no one was allowed to travel or move in the country except if you have certificates. And the police were obviously, when we were on duty, we used to work. So at one of our roadblocks, one of our off-duty officers drive into the roadblock. And he was then stopped. And as he was stopped, he jumped out and he ran away and he left the car behind. But because he was stupid, the officers know him. He works with them. They went to his house and that. But in the meantime, it was discovered that the vehicle he was traveling in was a stolen vehicle. And subsequently, he was then charged criminally and he was found guilty for contravening the COVID regulations. The stolen vehicle portion, he wasn't found guilty eventually, because I think there's a challenge with the South African Police Service not cancelling the vehicle when it was recovered, or it was his neighbour's vehicle and he just borrowed it, and that he wasn't found criminally guilty for that. But in his disciplinary hearing, the ruling was that he be docked unpaid for 10 days. And in that unpaid, it included the public holiday as well. So he even got unpaid for a holiday as well. So it's things like that that Brigadier Besaidenout is addressing, is to say that our officers, the disciplinary process inside is broken because it's not done by us, it's done by HR, and HR appoints presiding and presenting officers, and those doesn't understand the policing environment, where we say if a police officer comes on duty drunk, to us it's extremely serious because he drives a vehicle, he's in charge of a firearm, he can kill people while he's drunk. But to HR, it's just another employee who is drunk who must go to EAP and be treated completely different. So that is what Okut Besaidenout is referring there. The low morale that he's referring to is that there was, for a long period of time, we were not allowed to appoint anyone because of the structural changes between 2015 and 2019, and no structure has yet been approved, and we're implementing a new structure, and the existing people must first be placed in the structure. So it happened that due to natural attrition, is that the supervisory level, which is the more senior older people, would start to actually vacate the premises or vacate the service, is that we have a large amount of officers acting as supervisors, and there's no real appointed. The WAs, it stands for warrant of arrest. We have a warrant of arrest units, and we do warrant of arrest operations with roadblocks, where the printed warrant of arrest and digital versions of that, we would stop public during a normal roadblock, and we will verify the existence of warrant of arrest. That is what he's discussing it. And then the Draeger, when he speaks about the Draeger must be calibrated or not, we received a donation from the South African breweries where they donated Draegers to us over and above our Draeger, but there was because it was their Draeger to be used and our Draeger, there was a discrepancy about who must calibrate them. It's not ours, it's theirs. And then eventually it changed into where a formal donation was made and a formal handover process where council adopted and then assetized and accepted the Draegers, and then that is what the Draeger references to that.
Okay, now so I understand, this Draeger you reference here, is that a breathalyzer tool to measure alcohol content in one's body?
That's correct. When you do drunken driving, anti-drunken driving operations at roadblocks, it's an evidentiary breathalyzer machine.
So, and one of them is donated to EMPD by SAB?
One of them breweries.
Okay.
Yes.
You indicated earlier, I think when you started this conversation, that you didn't get an opportunity to speak in this meeting.
Correct. It's actually.
But if you look at page 107 there, after dealing with the Draeger, it reads CM. I take it that's the city manager. Revo,
Correct.
no, you do not have your hand up, and then you say, no, ma'am, I did not have my hand up, and then you speak thereafter.
Because at that stage, she mentioned in the beginning, we've got a loss of revenue or a lack of revenue. And my division, auxiliary services, deal with fine administration and municipal courts. We are the ones that report the revenue. So it's not that we can generate revenue. We're the ones that report it, because the officers on the road is the ones who write the notices and the fines. But we are the ones that capture it and actually deposit the money, so we can report back on the revenue. So I wanted to address what she said in the beginning about the revenue. And I started to speak, but then she says, no, Revo, you did not have your hand up, because initially she only stated who wants to say something and that. And then the chief interjected to say, because I did acknowledge I didn't have my hand up, but she made a remark after everyone was given the opportunity that I need to address now. And then chief answered her to say, CM, I just want Revo to explain more about the fines portion. And then he says, Chief, no, he did not have his hands up. Revo, do you have anything to say? And I said, just two clarifications. And then she immediately interjected again to say, you're not dealing with what I set around the table. Only my issues I set in the beginning. And then I said, it's the two issues you speak with, what you said initially. The one matter where you spoke about the one director getting overtime and the others not. This is at that moment, it's a highly contentious issue in the department. Because there are 8 directors, of which Brigadier van der Merwe is he's in logistics reporting to me, and the other directors is in operations. The chief of police issued an instruction linked to capacity about saving cost earlier in the year, where we were supposed to cut 50% of our expenditure budget, and overtime was cut and down to a maximum of, for admin staff, 32 hours, and for operational officers to 40 hours. And in that same instruction, the overtime for brigadiers was stopped completely because they were not supposed to respond to it. They're on standby and they're dealing with it. So overtime was stopped for them completely. They're also earning way above the threshold, the Labour Relations Act or the Basic Conditions of Employment Act threshold. So they're not really even entitled to overtime. But we did pay them overtime if they work operations or anything. And we use an electronic capturing system for some, and some use a manual paper feed. The e-left is the system that is being captured on. And Brigadier van der Merwe captured time due, meaning that he won't get paid overtime, but he will take time due in lieu of the overtime that he have worked. So he captured on his electronic system, he captured his time due. At the end of May, the payroll system paid him the overtime. And then he went back to the payroll to say, you made a mistake, you paid me overtime, I worked and it was stopped the overtime. So the payroll then agreed that the next following month, they will subtract the overtime paid to him again and then reinstate it on his leave side as time due. In this period, this is now happening. And Brigadier Mkhwanazi then went to the city manager and he lodged the grievance about the overtime. And Kemi Bihari was the chairperson of this grievance hearing. And Kemi Bihari then made a ruling, even though Bihari acknowledged that the pay office has already agreed that they will reverse the payment to Van der Merwe. Bihari still made a ruling to say that based on the fact that one brigadier is getting overtime, the rest must immediately get overtime. And then their overtime was reinstated. So this is my explanation to that matter where they addressed the overtime of that and which she mentioned in the beginning. And I stated it exactly as that as well, is that the lady second in charge of the payroll, Helena Hatang, they were discussing it on emails and there's proof to this effect. And Helena answered him back to say it will be recovered. Don't go and, there was actually a joke, don't go and spend it, it will be recovered from him. And it was eventually recovered from him. But then because of this outcome of Bihari in his grievance, he stated that the brigadiers at this very high salary can get overtime again. And since then they work and get paid overtime again. And
before you proceed, if you just put your finger there. Chair, I see it is 11 o'clock. Might this be an appropriate time to take your tea adjournment? And when we come back, please remember, Commissioner, that's where we pick up the conversation. Thank you.
Let us adjourn and resume at 11:20.
11:20. Thank you, Chair.